Welcome to the Nexus Point. We are Rich Romero and Geoff Bruskin, and this is the podcast for next-generation accounting firms. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Nexus Point Podcast. As always, my name is Rich, and I'm with managing partner and founder of White Tiger Connections, Geoff Bruskin. Geoff, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Rich. How about you?
I'm doing well. The weather is feeling good over here in the Northeast, so I can't complain. Sunshine. The topic of today's discussion is going to be around culture. It's talked about a ton, but oftentimes maybe misunderstood and overused. So my first question for you today is, why has culture become a cliche topic in professional services?
So everybody wants this mysterious thing called quality of life. And in professional services, especially the CPA profession, Rich, that is, it's easy to talk about. It's very hard to be provided. A lot of accounting firm owners, for example, will even go so far as to say that quality of life is not synonymous with the accounting profession. And yet people, accountants, financial advisors, lawyers, we want to live, we want to work to live. We don't want to live to work. And the profession, good old boys, Big Four, growing up, working 100 hours a week, that kind of thing is a thing of the past. Women want to have kids, travel, see the world. Men want to explore hobbies. It's not a men and women thing. It's a life thing. And especially people who want to actually see their families, men and women. Yeah, culture, insofar as it means quality of life, is really important. I think the other thing where, to your point about cliche, it's easy to, the Friday pizza party thing, right? The whole, we take Fridays off during the summers, like things like that. Yeah, I mean, they do mean something. But there's something that is intangible that some firms have, and we see this in our recruiting business, we see it in M&A, we see it in consulting, that other firms don't. There's an X factor about the way that they treat their people, the way they think about their people. I think you want to try to create an environment where it actually feels a little bit like family, and where people are showing up to work because they want to show up, not because they need to show up. And that's an incredibly difficult thing to actually execute. It's really only possible if the owners have a mindset of, true development, not only professional, but personal. And so obviously what I'm describing is, maybe somewhat utopic. It might sound like a utopia to a lot of the people who try their hand at culture, but at the end of the day, it's just a job, right? That's kind of the wrong attitude. You don't want to hire people who have that sort of approach. And, if I'm a candidate, I certainly don't want to work for someone who has that kind of approach.
Yeah, great points there. And I mean, we got off of a call yesterday with some clients, and culture is something that we talk about often with them. We hear it from them. You've met with their staff and you've heard, how much they trust that, the firm owners are going to respect their time and their value, and going to give them a day off, or, let them work from home if things, personally are going that way for the day. And it's never even a question for those guys. And you back them up on that. And I think it's an important thing to do. I mean, even just in our own firm at White Tiger, culture is a huge piece. You and I connect almost every other day, and we talk about all things, both personal and professional, and it shows up. If you can tell me about like the client accountant relationship is built on trust and integrity and all those things, again, that go into a company's culture. Where do they show up in client outcomes? And then what does a firm say that, like, how they act and what they say they'll do? How does it differ from, what they're actually putting out and how it affects the client?
I love that question, man. That's great. I think in professional services, Rich, there are so many minute component parts. First of all, especially in accounting, there's so many administrative components to what it takes to actually deliver something for a client, that you can't, standard operating procedure your way into, like completely repeatable processes. There are too many unknowns that could happen, even with a really well-built delivery model. And so, when things fall through the cracks, because they will, how does the client feel, right? I mean, we as human beings, we make decisions based on how we feel about things, not by, necessarily what's the least expensive or even the most intuitive, right? And so there's all kinds of data backing that up. And so the way that you as, an owner, the way that your key staff as managers, the way that your junior staff in an administrative or supportive capacity are able to make your clients feel is incredible for the ability to build better relationships when things fall through the cracks, to be there to support them when they have completely unexpected things that happen or scope creep in the projects, and you're able to tactilely, handle it, manage the relationship well. And ultimately, right, just like you can't anticipate for all of the copious amount of things that are going to happen on the client side and dropping the ball, you can't be there monitoring your managers or your staff all of the time and seeing how they're interacting with your clients. And so how, what is it that's going to be like a self-fulfilling prophecy that creates this client experience that's going to be defensively protective and then offensively build even better relationships? Well, it's the culture of your firm, because the culture that you have internally is going to be projected out and lived through the people who look up to you, who you're mentoring, in the way that they're interacting with your clients when your back is turned, right? And so, Rich, the question is perfect, and I think it has really powerful real-world context.
Yeah, I also feel too, when you hear about words like ownership and accountability, when those things are lived and modeled on a day-to-day basis by the managing partners, it's very easy for the staff below them to fall in line and do the very same things, and that, I think, creates a lot of trust from the clients, and they know mistakes happen, but they're going to keep moving along, and the work's going to get done, and there's going to still be a successful outcome. Tell me a little bit about how you feel like culture affects, employee retention and the employees. You touched on it a little bit, but I just kind of want to dive deeper into that, just because for me, in my experience, culture here, it's very easy, it's great, and it makes working here very easy. So explain to me like your thought process around that and how it can then translate into the professional services firms.
Yeah, I think I've just been an employee before, and I observed how I felt working for other people. And so I really endeavor to treat people who work for me. Rich, you're an example of that. Like, I wanted to be treated when I was somebody else's employee. And so I try my best to base everything on that. And it actually requires me rising to the occasion, because, I think everybody wants to be treated better than, maybe they're worth, so to speak. And that might sound like grossly capitalistic and a little bit heartless, but in a purely commercial context, right? Like, as leaders, I think we have almost a moral imperative to hire people who are worth our treating them like they're already an order of magnitude beyond where they are. So that means giving them opportunities to, be challenged and to fail, and creating a culture of like failure actually being positive. And in our consulting projects that Rich, you and I are doing for our clients right now, I think we try to perpetuate that same sentiment where, there's all of this conversation, especially in accounting, but also in financial services and law, where the competency of the candidate is not up to par from like an industry standpoint of what the firm owner needs. Especially true in accounting, where so many shareholders across the country, Rich, they don't feel like they have, senior managers or real support who are able to autonomously take large swaths of the shareholders' work off of their plates, like the shareholders were required to do when they were working for somebody before they opened their own business. And there's so much frustration about this. I think a lot of this is actually not the candidates or the employees' problem. I actually think it's an opportunity for partners and shareholders to manage in a little bit more of a dynamic way. So this is obviously much easier said than done, but it has positive commercial implications when it works. It absolutely speaks to employee retention, because now the loyalty is not only relational, now the loyalty is from a career standpoint, because the employee sees what they're able to do, personal, professional development, working for a shareholder or a manager for that matter. So it's vital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like my last point, it makes it easier for the staff below the shareholders or the managing partners to go that extra mile. It just kind of naturally then just kind of reincorporates itself back into what it is that you're trying to build, and it just takes off from there. Something else I kind of want to touch on too is, while culture itself may not show up on a financial statement or anything like that, does it have a large implication on the enterprise value of a firm and in conversations when you're talking about deal making and structures and all of that stuff?
God, I love you, man. That is such a great question. Not, I would say, in a single year, right? If you're looking at a 1 year pro forma, no. If you're looking at a 2 year pro forma, no. If you're looking at a 3 to 7 or beyond year pro forma, 1,000,000% yes. When you have a vertical growth thesis, organic growth, the stronger that you build the culture of the company, the more tiered management and reducing yourself as the bottleneck is going to be happening. And so scale is actually possible. If you have a dimensional, albeit still one vertical growth thesis where you're now doing inorganic M&A, you're buying firms within your sweet spot, it becomes even more vital because the firms that you're buying are probably absent a successor. And so now you need to integrate those firms that have incomplete systems. They haven't figured out culture, which is why they're lacking talent. And you need to have the answers for them. And part of that, maybe the biggest piece of that, is having senior people on your team who are already working for you, that are already integrated into your SOPs and your way of doing things, that are going to be able to be the successors for the people who are selling to you. And that's now creating more, again, vertical growth in multiple dimensions. If you're adding service lines like wealth management is a CPA firm, like tax is a wealth management firm, now it's just absolutely beyond necessary because there are so many unknowns that are going to happen in the way that the plumbing is connected operationally and the optics of the client service and getting, and a financial advisor to trust the tax advisor and the tax advisor to trust the financial advisor, and you can't be in a million places at once. So if you're investing in the culture of the company, you're creating a living, breathing organism that is going to be able to execute your will without you having to tell it what to do because you've poured yourself into it. So it absolutely could not be more vital.
Yeah, I appreciate you going into detail there because I feel the same as well, and it's always great when you can give a full, clear explanation on the implications that it maybe has. Let's say you're on a client call or you're working very deeply ingrained in a firm and things like that, and you're noticing some maybe cracks in culture or things like that. Can those things be repaired? Do you have to change everything, or does it just really start with just looking in the mirror and kind of figuring out where to go from there?
You nailed it again, man. I mean, culture is really about who you are as a leader. It's about, how do you treat yourself? It's about what are your expectations of those around you? How do you look at giving versus, taking in relationships? Business is, at the end of the day, an extension of personal. I know there are a ton of people who say, yeah, it's business. Don't mix business and personal. Rich, you're one of my best friends. And it's awesome to be able to say that. I think that, it's not necessarily something that everybody can achieve. And I don't think there's a problem with having separation between your professional life and your personal life. But it is profoundly personal, the culture that you have the ability to build and the way that you are able or not able to attract people who are tenacious, who are entrepreneurial, who are hungry. And so much of the whining that we hear from shareholders and leadership about there being no talent is really not a market problem. It's really a you problem. And so I think what we try to do is, I'm not the greatest thing, but try to meet the owner where they're at. Try to bring to light whether sometimes they're too hard on themselves, sometimes they're too easy on themselves. Whatever it is that's holding back better culture from being able to flow, better structure, better culture. The intangible and the tangibles are on a continuum. They're so interconnected, maybe more like DNA strands, right, than a single plane. And so it's this cliche topic, but it is so incredibly impactful on the realities, both immediate and especially, long term. And so the folks who are willing to do the work to invest in understanding how to make culture better, those are going to be the ones who are the most commercially successful.
Yeah, and again, that's why in my first statement, I kind of said, I think it's just a misunderstood topic and word because it's so much more than, core values on a website or the Friday pizza party or summer Fridays or anything like that. It's the standards that permeate the entire firm. It makes it easier every single day to come back to the same chair, to log in and to do the work. And it's trust in action. And I think over time, it's a key differentiator in what makes a firm and a group of shareholders and a practice thrive, or what is the reason behind their struggles. And That's just my thought.
Yeah, man. I mean, you got it completely. I think that it's so important. And I would just say it's an honor to be a part of a team where it feels flat, right? Like technically I'm your boss, but I look to you for leadership on some things, for feedback, for constructive criticism. I know you look at me with a tremendous amount of respect and, integrity and learning, which we're going through together every day. So hopefully we can just continue to put that message out into the universe, and it'll pay dividends, to all of the people who are listening and just endeavoring to make their firms better every day. So thanks for the questions. You put me on my toes for this one, and we'll see you on the next one, guys.
Yep. See you guys later. Thank you for watching the Nexus Point. See you next time.